Hi, everybody. This is Nancy from the team at Community Homeworks in Kalamazoo. Thank you for tuning in to another story about the people we meet and the impact of our work. Since 2009, Community Homeworks has been working hard to help homeowners stay safely in their homes by providing critical home repairs to income-eligible people. We also offer home maintenance classes and even lend tools so we can cultivate basic skills as we build relationships across neighborhoods. This podcast, called Being Right at Home, will include stories of empowerment, stories of hope, stories of what can happen when people work together. In the words of T.S. Eliot, home is where one starts from. So let's begin. Okay, everybody, here we are in the studio today, and I'm going to start out with a fun fact. Zach from our team is back. And for those of you who don't know, he and his wife had their first baby boy, and he's been out on paternity leave and enjoying this amazing and beautiful baby, and he is back. So if you come on in, ask for Zach and ask all about his baby, because I know he'll want to share a lot of information with you. So anyway, but on to the podcast. In the studio today, I have a special guest, Reverend Rachel Lonberg, the minister of People's Church in Kalamazoo. Reverend Lonberg, also known as Rachel, has been a longtime supporter of our work and has been an encouraging and affirming force to me personally as I continue to reach into our faith community to cultivate relationships. So anyway, I'm thrilled that Rachel could take time out of this busy season and busy time to talk to us about the intersection of faith and active engagement within one's community. I'm really hoping that today we can get closer to articulating why the mission and work of Community Homeworks is really a manifestation of one's faith. So, my friend Rachel, welcome to Being Right at Home.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, good. Yeah, and it's wintertime, and we both still made it, so I guess it all is well. I wanted you to start out, if you will, by just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself, your church, your ministry, your family, all those things that are really important to you.
Okay. So, as you said, I'm the Reverend Rachel Lonberg, and I serve as the minister of People's Church of Kalamazoo. I've been here for about 10 years now. I'm in my 10th year. And I can keep track of that because I have a child who was born just before I started. So he's almost 10. So I have two small children, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old at my home, and a spouse and 2 cats. And that's all for now, I think. Was you asked like a 17-part question? Did I miss one of the parts?
How about People's Church? Tell us a little bit about church.
Yeah, so People's Church is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and we have about 250 adult members and around 100 kids in our program. So they keep me busy. We do a lot of good work both within our community and beyond our walls.
And I can attest to that. Last year, you invited Chris and I out about this time of year, I think it was, and we were welcomed with open arms and got to hear you preach, and it was just amazing. So I'll never forget that. So thank you so much for that invitation and just to get to know the people you're with each and every week. I want to delve into something that is really important to me, and I think I alluded to this as you were walking in today, that I want our listeners to try to go on a little bit of a journey with us in mapping out what faith has to do with the work we do at Community Homeworks. And so let me read you our mission, and it was just updated. We just went through a strategic planning process, and it was tweaked somewhat, so I'm going to read it. Empowering our neighbors to maintain safe, stable, and sustainable homes for generations. And we added that on, that we wanted homeowners to stay in their homes safely, in hopes that they can thrive now, but also build that generational wealth for generations. What does that have to do with faith?
So I'm going to start with a story. So about 9 years ago, almost maybe to the day, I was awoken in the middle of the night when my carbon monoxide detector went off.
Mm.
And so I bundled up my 6-month-old baby and sat in the car while my spouse called the fire department and kind of did all the things you're supposed to do, tromping around in the, foot deep snow to figure out what was going on. And it turned out our furnace was failing.
Mm.
And we thankfully had a fireplace and could keep warm for the night, all sleeping in the living room, and could call the furnace service provider and got a new furnace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had always thought about housing and stuff before, but sitting in my car holding my tiny baby from outside a house that could have poisoned us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really opened my heart in a new way to this work. And that was about the same time that I learned about community homeworks at a clergy luncheon where y'all were invited to talk about your good work. And for me, at least, the work of faith is about paying attention to where our heart breaks
Mm-hmm.
and moving
Let's say that.
forward.
Okay, say that again.
So the work of faith is about paying attention to where our heart breaks and where our heart is broken open.
Okay.
And so for me, that my own experience of having my house not be safe, and ours was fixed within a few days because we had the resources, and even if we didn't have the resources, I could have called on my parents or my siblings or other people because we have that generational wealth in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Just is motivating, right? And I think for so many of us, we need to have that moment where either we experience something or someone very close to us does to really spark our compassion. And we can't often, or at least I can't, some people can, think our way into the work of justice.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can manage that, and that's just not how I'm built. And I think a lot of us are built that it really has to come from our heart and our soul, and saying, oh, right, that is my neighbor. That could have been me. And so I am compelled to do what I can to make it so it is no one.
I love that. And it sounds like when this happened, this unfortunate circumstance for you, it was winter.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah. Wow. Yeah, that makes you think. And to tell you the truth, when we left for Christmas this past year, a couple months ago, that was one of our concerns. What if somebody calls during the Christmas season without heat?
Right.
Because these no heat situations, starting in October, we all know the phones are going to start really, really ringing with those kind of situations. So, yeah, it kind of hits home, and the fact, thank goodness, you had a carbon monoxide detector. So
Yes. Who know? Like, I don't even want to imagine how that could have ended if we didn't have that in our house.
Yeah, which is something we make sure of every time we go into a house, regardless of why we're going in. We'll make sure there's a smoke alarm and fire, carbon monoxide detector. So for that exact reason.
So important.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So going back to the faith component of that, how does that fit into your belief system, though? I'm still trying to make that intersection. Faith is, I believe, for most of us, something about something bigger and higher than us that is working with us and through us and amongst us. How can we articulate that to others, that what we're doing is really the work of faith?
So in my tradition, in Unitarian Universalism, we are a community that doesn't all believe the same thing, right? So we have pagans and atheists and Buddhists and Christians and Jews and agnostics and mystics and all these different sorts of people with their different spiritual orientations in the world who all come together. And what reunites us is shared values. And so some of those values include justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. So we know, and our faith is built on these ideas that every person matters, every person is of value, and we are all interconnected. And I don't know how it, and most traditions have something similar, whether it's to love your neighbor as yourself or to not cause suffering in the world. We all have these teachings. And I don't know how you can believe those things without having it shape your actions in the world. Right? So it's, I think it's Cornel West who says that intimacy is what love looks like in private, and justice is what love looks like in public. And I think so much of what it means to be there are some traditions where belief is enough, right? If you believe the right thing, that's all you're supposed to do. But in many traditions, there's that so what step, right? Like you can't just think or feel or have faith in the right things. You have to actually let that shape your life, whether that's, being decent to your family or trying to reshape the entire world, right? But there is this call to put those values into action.
And that consistency of your beliefs with the way you spend your time and
Right.
those values that you talked about, which as you read them, I looked at our values, which are really similar. Our values, and again, we just went through this strategic planning process, and our values now, as of now, are, and they're not much different than they were before, but love, equity, the empowerment, collaboration, excellence, and integrity. And again, we share these common values. So that might be it. That might be it, our shared values.
So a fun aside is that our values, the first letter, anagrams to jet pig. And so now we have a stuffed animal in our church that is a little pig wearing a jetpack that helps us remember. So I encourage you to come up with a ridiculous thing that all those letters can spell to help you really keep it, because this is our denomination, our association did a whole project on clarifying our values. And so this was passed 6 months ago. And everybody knows them already, because if you can remember jet pig and we have this little stuffed animal, you can do it.
Maybe I'll send the list over to you, and you can let everybody at church.
We can figure out what it could stand for, and you can get a mascot.
Yes, we need a mascot.
It helps.
Okay, I'm gonna.
The community homework. I don't know, like a little hammer with a cape on it or something.
Oh yeah. Okay, all right, all right. I'm on it. That might be our fun fact for next month. We're just gonna announce our. Oh, good. So going back to learning about us, it sounds like it's almost been a decade that you knew us.
I think that's right. So I learned about you all because there used to be the downtown Kalamazoo clergy would have a monthly luncheon, which kind of fell apart at the pandemic. But we'd get together and someone would have lunch, and they'd often have some sort of community group come and say, "This is what we do." So I'm pretty sure I was sitting in the basement of Trinity Lutheran on West Edge, and somebody came in from Community Homeworks and said, "We're Community Homeworks. This is what we do," which was great.
Yeah, and we used to be located there,
So that would be why.
That's
Yeah.
that makes sense. Oh, wow. So that's how you learned about us, and then you learned what we did, and then with your experience and your story that you were willing to share with us, it all kind of started to make sense. So yeah, wow.
I think, like many people in Kalamazoo, both I and my whole church had our eyes opened about homelessness in our community and housing insecurity when there was that encampment on Brownton Park in, I think that was 2018.
Right before the pandemic.
Yeah, something like that. And so one of the things my church did is we actually threw a potluck in the park because we're really good at potlucks, like a lot of churches, I'm sure, but we're especially good. And so we were trying to think about what we could do, and like we know how to throw a potluck, so we partnered with churches that were on the park, and they brought out tables, and they just all ate together in the park, and it was really quite beautiful.
It's kind of like a communion.
Yeah.
It just came together. Wow. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about and maybe you had this back in seminary or your training in terms of. I used to think of churches as the hub of a community more in the agrarian times. And so if you had a need related to education or healthcare, the home sustainability, you might go to your church because we all went to the same church and we all gathered there to help each other. That's no longer the case in this complicated world where we're getting more and more spread out and there's a lot of technology. Can you address that? Do you see that? Or yeah, let me just leave it at that and see what you have to say.
So I think people still turn to their communities a lot of the time. I think it probably looks different than it did generations ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I know and that they've taught us in seminary is that we're not the only ones who can fix it, right? So to know our own limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, I try to keep a very robust Rolodex or referral network, right? So when people call and say, or in my church and say, oh yeah, my bathroom floor might be collapsing, I say, oh, let's get you to the people who actually know how to deal with this. Or, I'm not a professional therapist, but I can get you to that or help you navigate those systems, because the systems are still very complicated. And so I feel like part of the church's job is more to even help people know this might be the right number.
Okay.
And there are times when, somebody needs something and we can give them the money they need to solve that problem, right? And so we do that sometimes too. But I know, when there's already the baseline of trust that you might have with your religious community, sometimes asking there first is easier because they're going to see you as a whole human and not just some random person on the telephone, which I know you guys try not to,
You're right.
but
Yeah.
we all know that sometimes it takes a lot of vulnerability to ask for help.
And that's a good point because, yeah, it really does. And we really appreciate your efforts in making those referrals because we don't have the marketing money or we can't go door to door and let people know what we do. So relying on pastors and people of faith to make that appropriate referral is really helpful to us so that we're getting into the homes of the people that really need it efficiently and effectively, and yet hopefully they're feeling a little bit safer in using you as the starting point. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of a win-win.
And that's why it was so great to have you and Chris. I mean, we've had you come to our church a few times over the past few years. And so people know who you are. So if they have a need or if they know someone who has a need, they can be like, oh, right, it's Nancy and Chris, not just some listing on a website or in a resource guide, right?
Good. And that's one of, I have to toot our horn a little bit about that. The personalization that goes into what we do is second to none. I love the fact that people come in and will know Zach. They'll come in and say, where's Zach? So
That's great. It's so important.
we really want to know the people that we're working with and for. And so that's really important to us. Yeah. So what if a listener comes from another faith-based community and they're listening to Rachel, what do you want them to know about us? What has helped you and what might help them?
I mean, I think what's so important about community homeworks is you all have this niche, right, of helping low-income homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
And so to really step in before the crisis becomes a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just amazing that you you all are in that spot. And so when we can direct people to you who need that care, um, it's wonderful to see. It really changes people's lives and avoids catastrophe, as I said.
And so thank you for saying that. And yeah, and that's why we're all in this big boat together, I think. Just we need you, and hopefully we're gonna benefit the people of your church too. So thank you for that. Well, on that note, I just want to thank you, Reverend Lonberg, and
Sure.
wish you well throughout this entire year, and call on us whenever you need.
Okay. Can I tell one more story?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'd
This
love
is
to
one of
hear
my
another
favorite
one.
stories. So a few years ago, you all, as part of your big um, gingerbread houses for the holidays,
Ah,
had a kids contest too. And so my children were among the children who made these like tiny little graham cracker gingerbread houses as part of a village to submit. And we won one year. We still have the trophy proudly displayed at our church. We don't win very many trophies as a church, so it was pretty exciting. But after one of those Sundays when the kids were making their little graham cracker gingerbread houses for the contest, several children went home, and when their parents asked them what they did that week at Sunday school, they said, "We made gingerbread houses for the homeless."
oh, what?
And the parents were like, "What?
What?
What's happening?" And then then it was a great point of conversation, right? Like the parents were like, "Can you explain what actually they did?" Like, yeah, they did this, and it was for this contest for community homeworks, and they do this great thing, and it was wonderful, and people go and look at our 6-inch tall trophy
Oh.
with a lot of pride.
With
It's very
pride.
exciting.
Pride and smile
Yeah.
as you look at that
So it
and
was
think,
so
that's
our children who built gingerbread houses for the homeless.
out of the mouths of babes.
Yep.
And, it's just like that segue into a deeper conversation when they're ready is ready.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so hard to help, kindergartners, first like little kids do something to help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so to have that as an opportunity was very,
Oh,
very sweet.
good to hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear. And do know before I, turn off our mics that I will be calling on you again in this summer and fall so we can prepare again for our third annual faith-based roundtable.
Oh, wonderful. It was such a good event last time.
Oh, yeah. Our November event, for those of you who have never heard of it, is where we gather faith-based leaders from around the community. And it grew from a handful to a dozen to we were up to 53 last year.
Yeah, it was a
So,
big room.
yeah. So and it was you, Rachel. You were my guiding light when I first came on board, and I says, "Well, I want to grow this," and so you've really helped with that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Well, that's it. And again, thank you, Reverend Lonberg, and keep in touch. Well, that's it for this time, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Between now and next month, we will continue to be in our community, making a difference. But before signing off, I want to ask for your help. Please consider supporting us with a donation of any size. You can easily do this by visiting our website, communityhomeworks.org. Your help will allow us to empower more families as we build a stronger community, one home at a time. So until next month, please take care of yourself and each other. From our team to you, bye-bye for now.